All right, Holly, it's time now for our Monday morning quarterbacks. On the schedule for today, we are following the latest with the House Speaker, the Speaker of the House, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, throwing his hat behind Representative Jordan on Friday. Jim Jordan, that is. We want to bring in today's panelists, Gabriella Hoffman and Crystal Knight. Good morning to both of you ladies. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
You know, we just had our reporter there live in Jerusalem this morning. And when it comes to Speaker of the House, there's actually a lot of business concerning Israel that cannot be done until one is elected. I want to start with you, Gabriella. A vote is expected to be held tomorrow. Jim Jordan faces quite the uphill battle. What do you think it's looking like for him? How does he pull this thing off?
I think a lot of fears that Republicans, and I think everyone who does, and people who don't even support Republicans, is they can't come to a consensus on a House candidate. And I think the House of Representatives was put into a tailspin when Matt Gaetz forced this vote to remove the previous speaker, and now we're in the situation we're in. Jordan could perhaps get more votes than Steve Scalise. Does he succeed in getting the magic number, the threshold to gain the majority, or do they reach a more untenable situation where they're sharing powers with Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats? The House of Representatives was elected to be a check on the Biden administration, and I don't think the voters who did that in 2022 want to see that power ceded to the other side. So they probably have to coalesce around Jim Jordan, and if they don't, I don't think there's another consensus candidate at this time. So it's interesting to see the situation, and Republicans have to kind of get their act together.
Yeah, as you mentioned, though, that working with Democrats on that front looking unlikely. Crystal, what I do want to ask you, though, when it comes to Jim Jordan, as far as what his approach is, do you think he grinds things out like McCarthy did earlier this year, holding multiple votes? Does he postpone the vote? Does he drop out altogether, similar to what Scalise did? What's the best route that I think in the end makes him look like he made the right choice, right? Does he suffer through this or not?
Well, I think the best option for him is to count his votes before they actually take the vote, which is something that we saw McCarthy do over and over again and fail, which is why it took 15 times for him to actually become speaker. I don't see a clear path for Jim Jordan. However, you know, stranger things have happened, and if he has the votes and he can whip them behind the doors, then he can go in front and have a successful actual House vote. But I do see it taking him more than one time to actually become the speaker. I thought Steve Scalise had a better option and a better chance.
Yeah.
But considering that Republicans have already gone through this chaos, maybe they're tired and they're ready to pick someone, and they're ready to move forward with the business of government. And so they will build a consensus around him. But I think he has a harder chance, actually.
You know, Gabriella, we had a political strategist, a Republican political strategist, come on Fox 5's On the Hill yesterday, and she was saying that Republicans need to explain to their voters, explain the stalemate, and perhaps that it was done with a purpose. Do you think there is going to be essentially some explaining to do, even if they end up electing a speaker now in its second week of all of this? Will they have some explaining to do, or will folks have short memory and move on after this?
It could be a little bit of both, but they need to explain why this was done. And I can understand the principled nature, you know, balancing your budget, all that. And I do, and I sympathize with that case. But given the makeup of where we are, you don't have a White House that is favorable to you if you're a Republican. You don't have a Senate that's favorable to you. And you're only going to get so much, unfortunately, unless you can build consensus with the other side. But unfortunately, Democrats don't want to build consensus in many cases, unless if it's on their terms. So Republicans will need to go back to their constituents, to their supporters, and say, okay, we had a little bit of rumblings in our caucus. Now we're a little more cool and level-headed, and here's why you can still trust us. Because going into this kerfuffle in the House of Representatives, Republicans were enjoying very high favorable numbers, the highest since the 1990s. Okay. And so to do this, I don't know if they create distrust with the people that they were starting to build trust with, but this may be, you know, a moment that comes to pass, or maybe it could potentially hurt Republicans down the road.
We'll have to see. I'm going to jump in really quickly because, Crystal, I want to give you the final word here as we wrap. I think it was a little smirk as she was talking about the Democrats. So 20 seconds, what's your response to that?
Well, I just want to say when Speaker Nancy Pelosi was the speaker, she was able to build consensus on both sides of the aisle and to pass sensible legislation moving throughout Congress that would affect all of the American public. And so when we talk about consensus and a leader who's able to work with both parties, we need not only look to our former Speaker of the House, Speaker Pelosi.
All right. Well, I will say we've got the House Speaker chaos going on, and then just, averting a government shutdown in November. So hopefully things shape up a little better than they have been on the House Speaker front. Ladies, we only have time for one topic, but thank you so much for joining us, Gabriella Hoffman and Crystal Knight. Appreciate it. Have a good week.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks. All right. 7:37, Holly.
Coming up, the